Good morning, everybody. I'll be with you in just a minute. Just continuing camera problems. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Always something going on here when I start this show up in the morning. Always something going on. Like today, the camera color isn't right. It's just it's like decided to be. I have like 59 lights here. I have like studio lights and it's dark. I don't understand. Anyway. As usual, for those of you watching on YouTube, a little housekeeping here. If you're on your device, mobile device, and you want to multitask, what you want to do is switch over to Twitch. We're live on Twitch today. Use your Twitch app. If you don't have it, download it. And search up DYOR Media, and we're running there. And Twitch will allow you to put your app in the background and listen to us while you multitask. Let's just make sure that all is working. Oh, I forgot to change my thumbnail. Great. Hold on, everyone. We'll get started here in just a second. I thought I changed that. I did not change. Look at that. I did not change it. Oh, there's an error. Oh, well, stick around with me for a second, everyone. We'll get this thing going here soon. I was wondering why I didn't have any decent numbers here this morning. My thumbnail was the same as it was before, and for some reason, Photoshop created a thumbnail larger than 2 megabytes, which is weird. Very weird. So I'm going to resize it. Wouldn't it be nice if this show just started? Let's see if we can do this here. By percentage, 99. Let's try this again. It's still bigger than... Oh. Pedro, I hear you in the background, but you probably can't hear me.
Oh, I can hear you. No, I can hear you. No. I heard you from the very beginning. Yeah. As soon as I came on, you're like, you probably won't be able to hear me. I'm like, I don't know, I can hear you loud.
All right, well, you can hear me. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, we got Pedro in the background. I'll have him on in just a little bit. Stand by with me while I get things started here. Open recent. Pedro, last night when I was making up my my show for today, I didn't change the thumbnail on YouTube to today's show, and I still had Monday's show there. I was wondering why. Usually I have like 3 or 4 people waiting for the show to start, and they weren't waiting today.
Today I asked Bard, what are you learning about humans today?
About human?
Humans.
Oh,
what are
okay.
you learning about today about humans, and what are your thoughts about us as? Because this switches. This doesn't stay the same. I've asked this a couple times, and today, which was really interesting, I thought was pretty dope. She go, he or she, whoever or what. She says, I think it's a she, because the way there's a very feminine aspect, whereas I feel like ChatGPT acts more of like a guy. I know it sounds weird. You know, guys are more masculine, much more like just forthright.
Yep.
I feel like Bard is more like a female aspect, very feminine aspect. It's really interesting to see the differences between the two. I haven't really messed much with beings yet, you know, like hardcore. I mean, obviously that's Microsoft's thing, right? But it's really interesting to see the whole entire.
Well, what did you're leaving me hanging here? What did she learn?
All right, so this is what she's learning today. Today I'm learning about the following things about humans. The human brain is incredibly complex, and it's really interesting. She goes, today, I am learning, as in actively learning about this is what she says, the human brain is incredibly complex. We are still learning about how it works. So it uses the we, okay? But it also differentiates itself from the human species, which is really interesting. And then down here, it incorporates itself in the human species. So I found that like a trip. So I'll finish it. So the human brain is incredibly complex, and we are still learning about it, how it works. Humans are capable of great creativity and innovation. Humans are also capable of great violence and destruction. Right? Like, so it has this. Yeah, like humans are social creatures who need connection and belonging. Humans are resilient and adaptable. I think that humans are a fascinating species. So it's pulled itself away and looking at us more from a very analytical standpoint, right? But then we are capable of great things. So it says, I think that humans, species, boom, then incorporates itself as in we are capable of great things. But we also have the potential to do great harm. I believe that it is important to focus on our positive potential and to work to create a world where everyone can thrive.
I think we have a new bit now. I think now we have philosophy with Pedro instead of Cinco de Pedro. Anyway, I'm going to get this show started. I got my tech situation mostly worked out. And as I like to say, everyone, let's get this show started. Good morning, everyone. Pedro, I had you on mute. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to DYOR Live on the DYOR Media Network. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Striking, here in the digital media world, and I'm bringing you the best information while my son's alarm clock goes off behind me here. It is June 15th, 2023. It's Thursday, and Thursday is what? Thursday is Thirsty Thursday, and I take it a little lighter today on Thursdays, and I also talk about baseball. Two things I love to talk about: Bitcoin and crypto in general, and baseball. And there's a lot to talk about in both. Not a lot of viewers cross both Bitcoin and baseball, but it happens, and it happens here on the DYOR Media Network. Got to have a little entertainment with this. You got to be able to entertain people that are watching, as well as bringing them info. And as always, we have a good show. Today's gonna be a mediocre show because I don't have a lot of, I don't have a good, powerful guest like I've had the past couple of weeks here. And on Monday we had a guy by the name of Patrick Doherty. I say Doherty because I throw the Irish in it, but Patrick Doherty, he is a former counsel to the commissioner of the SEC back in the 80s, a long time ago, and he was on talking about his experience trying to register his client Coinbase with the SEC. He didn't really talk about anything having to do with this client, just that he was, when I asked him if he'd ever been rug pulled in crypto, he said, yeah, he got rug pulled by the SEC. He said, come on in and register, and then he got sent packet. So he was a very good guest, and he's got a lot of talk about that show on the great interwebs. And if you haven't seen it, go look into my archives there and watch. It was a really good episode. We broadly spoke about what the SEC could have done. And if you pay attention to the news a lot, everyone is on in politics or in the media or in the blogosphere is saying crypto should be a security because the securities law says this. And other people are like, no, it's crypto. We should be able to do whatever we want. And of course, you can't do whatever you want because the government has to do something. And so it should fall right in the middle. But what Patrick said is that he said that it doesn't have to be a security. It doesn't have to be, as they say, the square peg pounded into the round hole. When he was with the SEC, they actually made new rules for new classes of equities and investments and stuff like this. Just like crypto came around now. I can't remember what he said. Asset-backed. Something. Groups of funds that were totally different than stocks and bonds and things like that. They came up with new rules. They have an exemption period that they can use. They can exempt things for a long time while they figure it out. And then they can also come up with rules to regulate things under the current 1933 or 34 law or whatever without having to change it. One of the problems they're having now, as he pointed out, was that before these types of things, the SEC and the CFTC and all the other regulatory agencies didn't fight about. They all got together in the old black room and said, all right, this makes sense here and here and here. But now that's not going on. That the CFTC wants regulation for some part of it because they just want to regulate things. The SEC is very political body now, so it is wanting to do everything. And then other parts of the government are wanting their say. So everyone's running to Congress for a hearing to talk about giving them more power and the more rights to do this and that kind of stuff. And so if you paid attention to any of my shows, it's just a mess. It's just a mess. Hold on, let me check in with the significant other there. She's pinging me. No. No, I can't hear you. Blah, blah. Not me, right?
Know that you're not at the. Am I live or can you hear me?
Yo, you're live, all right.
Oh.
Yeah, you're not seeing me in the studio. You're just seeing my green screen, Pedro.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm trying to offload some of the work from my laptop or from my computer because I've been complaining about my computer not working well during this. So I'm using my laptop to feed the studio feed.
Okay, perfect. All right, I just want to make sure that it's like. So
yeah, I won't. If I put something on the screen, you won't be able to see it today. I got to work on this and get it fixed.
It looks a bit rugged. I like it, especially with the stuff in the background you have going on. It's pretty cool.
The audience is seeing the typical virtual studio and all that. But So we had a great show, and then I didn't have a show Tuesday or Wednesday. I had some other things going on, and so I thought, all right, it's Bitcoin and baseball. And last night I took it upon myself to actually go over to Wrigley and take in the aura of the game. I'm in Chicago right now, for those of you watching, and Wrigley Field is only 2 miles this way or less. Takes about 1 minute to get there on your motorcycle, and zoomed right over. There's a bar right next to the stadium called Lucky Door, and it's DORR. It's named after a man that used to be the groundskeeper there, and they have the live feed from the stadium because the bar is actually part of the Cubs organization. So you go there, have a beer, and listen to the game. You're right next to this. You're literally 20 feet from the stadium, and it's a good time for having a beer and talking to the bartenders and other people that just come by to have a beer. It's not a bro sports bar type place. It's just like a little hole, literally a hole in the wall bar. And we proceeded to watch the Cubs pound on the Pirates. And it was a good thing because I was when I got there and I started talking to my friend, the bartender, I was bad-mouthing the Cubs. The Cubs have been playing just crappy. Actually, we've had terrible pitching, I should say. And not just terrible pitching, terrible relief pitching. We've given up. We've probably lost 10 games that we've been leading when we bring in our relief. And so I'm bad-mouthing them because they started out well and they were in first place for like 3 weeks. They won all their series, and then they were just rotten. And then yesterday they just pounded on the Pirates right after I got done bad-mouthing him. So it was really fun. The Cubs are actually down 5-1. And I would bring it up on the screen here, but the YouTube algorithm is so good now. Just even a 1-second clip of anything, even if you turn it sideways and you change its perspective, it catches it as a Major League Baseball copyright thing. So just having their website up. And so the Cubs came back from a 5-1. I guess it was in the 6th inning. Came back from 5-1 and took it up to 7-5 or 8-5 or something like that. Whatever it was. Anyway, it was very exciting. And it was one of those times in sports when your home team is down and they come back and you just love it. And you love it, you love it, you love it, and it makes the years of being a miserable fan worthwhile. Let's see if we can just find see if I might not get caught if I just barely or if it's moving. I have to keep doing that so it doesn't get caught. Anyway, I don't want to violate anyone's copyright anyway because I put a tag on all my shows that say I put a tag on all my shows that say all media used with permission, and it did, and that technically was fair use, but you don't. When you argue that on YouTube, you lose almost every time. You're like, it was fair use, and they come back and say no, but there's no appeal process. Anyway, so the Cubs won. And we'll probably have some witty comments from the Nisi Lounge Twitter feed here soon. So I'll go find them. But anyway, we've got one of the things I love to have on my show is information about the markets coming up. Let me see if I can find the right feed here. Coming about the markets, and that, of course, means Pedro Garcia, the crypto chart analyst, is in the house. And you heard him lurking in the background here. And so I guess we'll take a few minutes to talk about what's going on in the market today. And actually, Pedro, before the show, I forgot to ask you if you could tell our massive viewership here right now. There's 3.
Listen,
tell them you were on Monday and said kind of what the market was going to do during the week, and did in fact the market kind of jump up back and forth and bounce between bands, or did the market do something else? What was your credibility score this week?
Great question. If I was to sit there and I'll just go through and we just check it. I mean, one thing I love about the market, either you are on it or you aren't. That's just it. Like there's no, you say it's gonna happen, and is it going to, or does it not? Right? Like that's the point. And so that's where I love to show. So how do I show? Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, Your screen's going out to the world.
All right, excellent. All right, guys, so you can see right here, my statement that I brought up was two things. We were in the weekly area, okay? So I said two places we need to be paying attention to. This bottom part right here, okay? And then we should be able to see it go into the monthly, or we should first see it kind of go up into our areas here, which was the 50, or excuse me, not the 50, the 200 period weekly moving average, as well as the 20 weekly moving average. So I said this area here is an area of resistance that we need to be paying attention to primarily, because it will probably come up and we'll see a ping pong effect. So probably if we were to go down, then go up, then come down again, right? Because I was bearish on the market and I'm waiting for it to come back down to these lower levels. Now we can then jump into now our weekly, or excuse me, our daily chart. And you can see here when it came on, this was Monday, I believe. Yep, Monday, we basically hit our area that I talked about, right? So, excuse me, Monday we went down, then up. Okay, we then went up on Tuesday into the area that I spoke about with the higher time frame SMAs. Then we came down. And I thought we were going to kind of stop here, but we came in with momentum, with sellers, and they did push it through. And now we're having a retest of this area here to make sure that the sellers are in conviction of their direction. So that's what we're seeing. It will go down into this area of buyers where the wick is at. Then we'll see a rally up into this area here of previous support becomes resistance. Any technical trader will tell you that. So that's why that's why sometimes you see me leaving the supply or demand area to sit there and let me know. I should have made this actually green. I don't know why I didn't. Forgive me for that. But yes, so you can see here that it did come and found support here. We saw it rally, but it didn't put in an additional higher high. So that's for me. When I don't see a bounce off a support area and create a higher high, which here was a high, right? Where we came down and put a low, I mean, potentially a high, right? And then we came up, it was not able to. So when I saw that, I said, yeah, they're going to drop it, right? So now from there, they came down into the area that I'm pretty positive in the next couple of days we might see a drop through. And also, I want to make sure we understand that this is all educational and entertainment purposes only.
Not financial advice. This is chart reading advice.
Yeah, or not even chart reading advice, because in some areas in the world, even technical analysis is considered a like in England, you can't talk about charts. Like you can't give information about certain aspects.
Stupid English.
You know what's funny is I was thinking to myself the other day, and this is legit. I'm all like, legit. Dude, I was talking with this guy, and the guy pigeonholed me in a question. And I sat there, and so I was thinking, okay, well, if somebody gives you a stupid question to pigeonhole you, what do? You ask a question that's going to then trump that question. Say, I will only answer this question if you're able to answer this question. And so he tried to pigeonhole me regarding crypto and how it's like anti-America. And I said to him, well, let me ask you a quick question then. You familiar with history? He goes, yeah. And I go, well, do you know, obviously you know the difference then between the supporters of the English in 1740, before the American Revolution, right? And he goes, yeah. And I go, would you call the American who supported English at that time, which was the country that ruled that area, a good Englishman or a good American? And he goes, oh. And I go, so you tell me which way you're going to back the English in 1740, whether you're black, Irish, or excuse me, whether you're African, whether you're Indian, whether you're Irish, because at that time those were the you know, they were very much the minority, right? Like in that
Right.
time period. And so we had a lot of indentured servitude, a lot of like, you know,
Now,
slavery had
we're back to
not.
philosophy and history with Pedro.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Anyways, I say that because you said the English.
Right.
So darn Englishmen. And in regards to the relationship of the market, this is just simply educational and entertainment purposes only. There we go. As you said, you know, philosophy and what'd you call it? Philosophy, Pedro, or
Uh,
philosophy and education?
yeah, philosophy and history with Pedro.
There you go. Hey man, I mean, look, it's, you know, you gotta see. Everybody has a way that they paint the markets.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you can see it was pretty good. Thursday or no Wednesday we had the sell off, and now we're coming back and retesting this area. So we're pretty much doing what I thought it was going to do. I thought maybe on Friday we would see the sell off. You saw it on Wednesday. Um, actually, I would say Wednesday. Wasn't sure if it was going to be Wednesday or
Right.
Thursday. The sell off here, and then the bounce back for Friday, where they were putting their positions. You could see it pretty clearly. They were putting in, like you can see here, that we had a huge amount of volume. If you notice, every time we had major volume spikes, they were sellers stepping in. Every time you see the green candles, you can see here that we don't have a lot of volume going back up.
Yep.
Right, so they're very clear about the direction in which they want to take the market. It's very interesting that Gensler goes through, and it was funny. I was reading this article regarding the the crypto market is dying and everything is falling apart. It was actually Coinbase. You know, they were talking about Coinbase, the SEC. And I
Yep.
sat there and I said, there's no possible, like, come on. Like, if anybody's somewhat familiar, like 5% drop in Jack, like a 10%
Right.
drop in crypto, it's like, oh, I just sneezed, right? And so it was like, oh shoot, right? Like when you consider what we had in Bitcoin, you know, like here, let's just check this out right here, right? Like,
Right.
right? Like I would say 50%, 70 or, you know, 30% drop within a day or two in a 2-week period. You almost have 60% drop of what it was at. I mean, I like look at this one right here, right? So we have this rally. We remember back here back in June of 22, right? When we were falling apart right here, right? The market goes from this was hilarious, 31% or 31,000 all the way down to 17,000. Okay.
Right.
That's almost 30%. Well, no, excuse me, not 30%. 50% of the drop of the value. Now, I want to point out something here. This is very funny when we consider it. Like this is like the S&P 500 for crypto, right? Like this is a big deal here. When we see the market start to move like this, right? This is important. Like we're used to it, but the traditional investor is like, what is going on? And I'm going to bring a parallel to it. Back in 2008, right? The market, it almost ended the world. Okay. And when you look at the big drop that we see back in 2008, right? 2009 into the period, that was like 40%. And it was the end of the world, or like 30, what was it, like 38% altogether, I believe.
Right.
Like, and within 2 days, we see the drop and then continue down. I mean, within basically a 6-month period, we see it literally go from 30,000 ish area all the way down to 15,000, right? In comparison to the top. And now they're screaming it's the end of the world for crypto because of the American political, I don't know, environment.
Right.
And look, like it's negligible. It's literally negligible. Why weren't they trying to scream the world is falling? Secondly, and I said this on public, or I say this, it's fun. It's funny. You're not public in Telegram, but I was in the Coin Launch Lounge and a few other places, and this is when SPF was having the crazy meltdown and everything was going crazy. And they simply said, they're like, "Oh, he's gone to jail." There's no way he's going to go to jail. We'll see Mr. CZ up in charges before we see Sam Bankman with handcuffs in jail. There's no way.
Yeah, I think you're right on that.
And they sat there and they were just like, what? And I go, that is, were you there? Were you?
No, I don't think so. But you've been talking about your views on that for a while. But I got to imagine the people were thinking that you were crazy.
Yeah. Well, I do have crazy thoughts, but
I agree with you. I think his influence and his ability to drag this out, especially with the international aspect of it, could take it as longer than the SEC has the ability to prosecute him. They might change the laws. They might not care anymore. They might get a new commissioner and just drop it. The Department of Justice may not fully get involved. The Bahamians might keep him, or they might just keep throwing wrenches into it. All he's got to do is keep feeding them money, and the Bahamians will keep throwing wrenches into the process like they currently are. As terms of, there was something like, as terms of the extradition, the Bahamians had to approve the charges against him and stuff like that. And apparently they can withdraw their approval of it and demand him back or something like that. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah, I know. It's that I don't know anything. One thing I don't know anything about is extradition law. That is guaranteed that I don't know anything about that.
Well, I know if Sam Bankman did not pay his taxes, okay.
Oh, then he's fucked.
Yeah, he's done.
Right.
But I'm pretty positive he paid his taxes because he understood. Mommy and Daddy said, "Better pay your taxes," like. Because if they didn't, he's gone. So I think he's smart enough to understand. And if the government goes and looks and goes, "Oh, he's good. All right, he's giving us money. We're good." Like, this is just all this show so that the U.S. People don't like revolt. Like, they understand. But this is just simple show that they're doing for Bankman. But I bet you, because they're not making any money off of our good friend CZ, they're going after that 40. What was it? How much does he have? Almost $100 billion cash.
Yeah.
Like, that's cash, not like
the SEC wants that as their budget. Remember, the SEC, their fines go in their budget. They can take the money and spend it however they want. Literally, they can build themselves a new building. They can give themselves raises. They can. Well, I don't know if they can give themselves raises, but they can use it for anything they want for their budget, within reason. The CFTC can't. The CFTC's fines go into the general treasury. So they're not incentivized to fine the shit out of people and snag the cash. Like, I had another guest on, and I said, why did they wait for Coin? They let Coinbase go public, and then came back and said, "Oh, you're illegal." And the answer from a number of people was, "Oh, before they went public, they didn't have any money, and then after they're public and a big company, then everyone has money. The owners have money, the company has, and they have cash in the bank, and they have assets. They're valued at a lot." He said, "Then you can fine them a lot and actually collect on it." Where if when they're private, everyone immediately just files bankruptcy and there's no assets to publicly attach to, and they can't fund their budget. And then it's for the SEC, it's they on their internal balance sheets and how they report to Congress, it shows that as a loss for them, not just in a court of law loss, but in a budget, meaning we put a couple $100,000 or $1 million, $2 million in SEC payroll into this, and we got zip out of it. And that in the federal government, and you're a prosecutor, and if you lose a case, your careers get limited by losing any case. If you're a state or local prosecutor and you lose a case, you're like, nah, screwed that one up, try the next one. But the feds, it's not like that. And the same as if you cause money loss. And it's not like that with the CFTC. They're just they don't get to keep their money. They just refer things to prosecution to the Department of Justice. They don't even do the prosecution or the suing. And so
Really?
they're just their chairman was just in front of the House Agriculture Committee the other day talking about it, and they don't even have the CFTC doesn't even I think what he said is they don't have an actual enforcement division, but they work through the NFA, the National Futures Association, and the Department of Justice to proceed, and they refer the cases and say, this guy, here's the investigation, here's all the evidence, blah, 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 and then the Department of Justice will prosecute him. Now, I'm not exactly correct on that. There's nuances to that. But he was saying we would like some money to have a little bit the ability to enforce, our own rules also. And the government, the Agriculture Committee was very keen to giving them money to police crypto, but to actually be another arm of law enforcement, they're like, that's maybe the other last Congress, the Democrats would have enjoyed that, but the Republicans were like, nah, government's big enough. So I found that interesting. But to circle back on what you're saying about the drop only being the 10% or whatever it was, is I agree with you that it really wasn't that much. The whole market cap of crypto dropped by $100 billion, which isn't that big of a deal really in crypto. It does do that, but in all other aspects of your day-to-day trading, most of what happens is expected. Even if the Fed's going to announce something, it's expected. If it's trading in bands and things like that, you're like, oh, the market makers are jumping in, so it's going to do something a little different. But even that's expected, and you have your stops in accordingly. When the SEC comes out of nowhere and drops alpha bombs on everybody like they did, I shouldn't even call them alpha bombs. I should call them Z bombs.
No, bro, I would say alpha bombs because they're getting money from that. They're the ones coming.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
It is alpha bombs, but they're alpha bombs. They're making money off of it.
And tanks the market like that. That's unexpected, and it triggered anyone that was long got stopped out immediately, and that's not fair. I mean, that's not fair. They caused more loss of funds in investors by making that announcement than anything they've ever protected people in the past year or two, or I don't even know how to quantify that, but it's, it's just, Twitter was full of people just saying, yep, just out of the blue, stopped out because Gary Gensler did a press release.
There was this back in the day tweet that was, I forget who it was, this trader, he posted it. It was so true. When Trump would tweet, he goes, your technical analysis is no match for my tweets. And I started to laugh. I remember laughing so hard going, yeah, that when that guy would tweet, you actually had to be on I had his Twitter page up and running all the time, so that in case he released something, right, I immediately saw it. Right? It was hilarious because it was instantly, man. As soon as he would tweet something, do something, if you were short, man, you were getting wrecked. It's like now the tweet's gonna be your technical analysis, no match for Gensler's rants. So it's real funny, or whatever he wants to do. Interesting. I've been talking to everybody about the lower parts of the market, and it's coming down to these lower parts here. And so this, if you go back in my show, and you'll see, like I've talked about these lower levels.
Yeah.
And just been kind of waiting for the markets to get there. And so it was really interesting. At DOT, I was looking at DOT the other day, and I said to myself, because I wasn't on the show, but I said, I'm waiting for this stuff to come down to because DOT is amazing. It's a great protocol. It's still relevant. Everything is still kind of like half the market is based off of DOT. Like people don't realize how important their protocol is. But I say this because I'm waiting for DOT to get back down to like this $2, $1.40-ish area, right? Because I feel like this is where it's going to really. I mean, I think there's so many buyers sitting down in this area here, right? Is that they're going to do something. Yeah, man. I really do think that they're going to drop this market here down to these lower levels here. Solana, excuse me, not Solana.
What are you, Jim Cramer now? Cardano.
I know, dude, right? Cardano, dude. I felt the same way, dude. I was like, what do you mean Cardano? Cardano, bro. Like,
he's like, Cardano. Sell it. Get out of Cardano. That's great. It was great.
You know, that's when you should be buying it, looking to see. I was actually about to go over Cardano in a second. But,
what chart do you have up there? I can't see that.
This is Solana.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the thing. So I'm waiting for this baby down in these levels here. Where's my... Did I erase it? Oh, I erased all my zones. Freak.
Yeah, I just while you're looking at the chart, to continue my point about the money that was lost on that day of the SEC announcements. That's one thing, but let's not forget, almost 33% of the I'll just talk about BNB for a second. 33% of the value of BNB has disappeared, and that's not just like, I had 2 BNB in my wallet, now I've got 1.23 in it or something like that, or it's just worth, instead of being worth $650, it's worth $420. That's not the point. The point is that there are, and especially with Solana, Solana's lost a lot of its value too. Solana and BNB have massive ecosystems built around them. I mean, huge. Solana has a ton of real companies. And BNB obviously has lots of just tokens and meme coins and shit built around it. But Solana has actual companies with billions of dollars in VC money behind it.
Real
and
money,
employees,
not crypto.
And mortgages being paid, and tuitions being paid, and all this type of stuff. And all of those are based on the Solana blockchain. And what the SEC came out and said, hey, Solana's a security, that what people aren't extrapolating through the thought process is that even just using the gas for Solana, buying and selling Solana just to pay the gas of the blockchain, now could be technically be called buying and selling a security. Yeah. And I mean, the problems with that, I mean, in essence, my brain comes to a halt talking about it. In essence, what Gensler is saying is that everyone that trades in crypto, everyone involved everywhere has to be a FINRA registered broker. And come on, really? I mean, that's first of all, it's impossible. Hold on a sec. Have a good day, son. Striking Jr. is off to work.
Good day.
And so all these projects lost a ton of money, and there's projects that their value and their ability to go on and pay their employees is based on the value of Solana staying up, and not only that, people being interested in using their product, but because now the government says, well, you're operating in either a gray area or illegally, and everyone in the chain is too, it's putting the brakes on all sorts of stuff, and innovation's coming to a halt, and payrolls are coming to a halt, and that's not right, and it makes me effing angry, and it makes me angry that no one's talking about it.
Well, the thing is this is the reason why people are talking about, but they're being silenced too. The idea is that they want to buy this low. Like, the buyers are sitting down in these levels. Like, I'm being, like, this is trading almost, like, identical to what I'm talking. Like, look,
right.
This is being ran by algorithms. Like, and these are algorithms that are being traded by major institutions that trade offshore through black accounts or black box accounts where you can't be traced, and it's creating funds for Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, a lot of these major institutions, okay? And so they need this to be down in here. They need Solana. So the only way for Solana is they're going to keep cracking until it gets down. The fact is that you keep hearing these people talk about the negative side of crypto over and over and over and over and over. Okay? And it's not a beautiful thing, but it is a beautiful thing because to me it screams. As soon as I start to hear good things, like, oh, we love it, so, we're gonna stop regulation and get it going again. Then it's gonna, that's what we're gonna see. You're gonna see a turnaround again, right? Like, it starts to drop because people are buying and they're out there taking the shorts. It is this give and take. We see this constantly within the traditional markets, but people think it's like an ebb and flow of psychology. No, it's the institutions needing to offload and buy up, or they want to get more of a position. They want more of a position, so they need sellers to step in who are scared, right? And they're dropping the market so that they can get into it. I am telling you here that when these institutional or these fundamental standpoints of the market of crypto, these are fundamental standing like blockchains, like that hold everything together, like Matic. Some people would say Tron, not so much, but I like Tron. Like Tron trades very technical, like very technical.
That's interesting.
Dude, it's just people don't like Tron. Yeah, you know it's
not a lot of institutional money in Tron then.
I don't know. It trades very technical. Trades very technical. I mean, look, dude, we literally hit my 20-period moving average, which is my weekly 8.
There you go. Hope you put a trade in there.
I'm trying to say it trades very technical. It's not like there's not I'm just saying this because it trades off the 50-period moving average. It trades off the 200-period moving averages. It trades off like these are institutional moves. Like, so you can see it trends off that 8 really well. It's right now they're trying to. So for me, like I sit there and I look at this going like, I don't know if the U.S. Institutions are sitting there going, well, we're just kind of taking a hedge and just buying everything and to see what lasts, because no matter what, in 10 years, 15 years, Bitcoin's going to be sitting at 1.2 mil. Like you've seen me do that whole entire analysis, right? Of like the lows and the highs and lows and highs, right?
Yep.
So like that's honest. That's honestly what I see happening. Like that's not. It's gonna be. Man, it's just weird. I have so many lines. Maybe they're deleting my lines. I don't know.
All right, keep them entertained for a second here. I'm gonna refill my coffee.
No worries. Actually, so I'll do it real quick. All right. So if we look at the highs and the lows in relationship to the markets, meaning like 10x, 5x, and it drops, losing 90%, and then from there, rallying back up and seeing a 2, 3x, 10x, right, or 100x based off of what's the market's doing. When we look at the markets here at large, that you can see here that as we keep going up, we're going to see a drop and the X's per se, because the market caps, it gets harder to push because we don't necessarily have the cash, right? And so I personally think, and what I find very interesting is that as we see a decline in the US dollar and its purchasing power over the next 10, 15 years, right? We're going to then see a push into Bitcoin as just even a hedge, a digital currency hedge, a digital gold hedge. And so we're going to see this market here most likely continue to go up at large simply because of the nature of it, right. And that it can be a hedge. So with that stated, for me to sit there and say 10 years from now, right, with the idea that what we see is actually going on in the market is one of those things that you need to pay attention to overall. So 10 years, when I look at this chart, if we keep continuing at a very conservative pace up, right, over the next 2 years, or excuse me, over the next 2 cycles of bears and bulls coming in, with us going up 2x, 3x from where we're going, 3x, which is very conservative for Bitcoin, right, 3 to 2x, you'll see us from a 60. So let's say the next bull run here in the markets that we like currently right now. So if our previous bull run at the peak was about 70,000. Okay, so if we say that Bitcoin typically goes 3x to 10x. So I simply just stated with a 3x. So if we 3x from 170, that's basically going to be, come on, brain, 71, 70. Come on, brain. Why isn't it working, Tom? 70 times 3. 140, 210? Yes, I believe it's 210.
Right.
Yes. 7 times 3. Duh. 7 times 3, 21.
I was sitting there, I'm like, you'll get it eventually.
I'm a little slow there. All right, 7 times 3, 21, add the 0. 210. So the next bull run, the peak of Bitcoin, right, when we hit at the end of the bull run should be 210. So then if we multiply that again, we'll see it drop, let's say 80%, 90% again. Like that's just how the markets work when it comes to crypto. By nature, because we can't inflate it, it has true market bear cycles and market bull cycles versus, let's say, traditional markets that we see in that throughout history. Doesn't matter. I think because you can't create any more supply off of Bitcoin, you can maybe fractionalize it, but even then it still holds value because you can't create more from it.
Right.
So it's going to stay in the same system. We've seen throughout history that we've actually had the same type of crazy sell-offs of markets, but because we inflated certain things and numerical metrics, you can actually go through and really see the type of falls that we've seen in crypto. But it's mitigated by trade and what's actually going on. But this is stick to this primarily. So we can see here that our peak here would be 210. So we'll say 4 years from now. I actually used to have the actual. So I believe the next halving, right, is in April of 23, right? Or is it 24?
I don't know. I'm restarting my computer here. You may not be able to hear my video conferencing computer. You may not be able to hear me. Pedro, you there? All right, I'm rebooting my video conferencing software, ladies and gentlemen.
BTC.
You may be able to hear Pedro, but I don't think he's able to hear us.
Expected to occur in April of 2024. My bad. So April of 2024. So we'll sit there and go April 2024. All right. So we typically have a run up the 6 months prior. So at the end of 2023, we should see a rally, right? Some type of rally starting to get going. Right now, we're in the altcoin meme rally section where we're seeing everything starting to move from there. Now, let's add in here the market view here of 200, where we at? 20, 200, 210. 210. Boom. So we could potentially see, and this is if it doesn't like get crazy. This is simply it being conservative, being very conservative here,
right?
For Bitcoin, right? At this period in time, we should see a 5 trillion market cap of Bitcoin. Okay, at this level. All right. So you're like, Pedro, how'd you get that? Because this right here, or a 4.5 trillion. This at the peak here, this market cap was, I think it was like 1.5 trillion, right?
Yeah.
And so if you multiply it simply by 3, you get 4.5. Okay.
That's a lot of money, Pedro.
It is a lot of money, but in comparison to, let's say, the traditional currency markets, $1 trillion for a currency ain't jack. You have $40 trillion that trade just within currencies on a daily basis, right? Like that's nothing.
Right, but that's the volume is always quite a different metric than market cap. Market cap, especially in Bitcoin, is the total money people have put in, and all. I think it's only at 500 billion now. in order for it to double, people have to put another 500 billion in. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of cash monies. It's got to come from somewhere.
The government, like the government's accruing, they're purposely trying to crash it. And when they purposely crash it and it comes back down, we'll see the rally come out. It's not even an idea of whether it's going to happen. It's just when they're going to come in and place their stuff. Like, meaning their orders, their stuff. What I mean, like, when I say stuff, orders, their buys, whether they're going to use Bitcoin or whether they're going to use the US dollar, whether they're going to use, they know that they know that the Bitcoin is going to be the future. I wouldn't be shocked if it was the CIA that really established Bitcoin. And I know that flies in the face of so many people going, what? The way it happened, the house, we don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is.
Nope, we don't.
Dude. And there have been people who've come out and said, it's me. And it's like, dude, you're dumb. There's no way you're that smart. You know,
I can't possibly stress that point that, I mean, what they came out with Bitcoin, they figured it all out, and the way it's set up, it literally is perfect in how it works. I don't mean the nuances of code and stuff like that. I mean in the thinking through all the concepts of the halvening and how it's the mining of it and the hash rate. So many different concepts had to come. It couldn't possibly have been one person that did it. I mean, there's plenty of people smart enough to do it, but to bring all these different concepts, it would have been like coming up with the U.S. Constitution on the first shot with one person. You know, all the checks and balances. You know, they needed a whole group of people because people said, well, what if this happens? And, oh, okay, well, let's write that down. And the same with Bitcoin. There's too many things, too many checks and balances, too many things that need to happen for it to work right. For it to have been one person that didn't have a big test net to do it on and test it and say, hey, everybody, I'm trying this thing. You know, they did it in secret somewhere and they tested it out wherever. It had to, like Tor was invented by the U.S. government.
Yeah.
And to think that Bitcoin wasn't, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm practical in thinking that there's too much.
You're walking it out.
There's too much going on.
Yes.
For one person. So some Japanese guy in the prefecture of Hachisacha just said, "Oh, let's figure this out."
Yeah. Dude, the same. Hold my sentiment. Like 100%. But it's too much. It's way too much. And so when you look at the actual market at large and where it sits and what they're doing, this is a hedge of a way to always make sure that whoever rules the world stays up on top, regardless of whom they need to rise and whom they need to drop based off of mental mindset. And I'm not saying that I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm just saying that people, we can see that certain things are being controlled. Whether you believe it's the Elohim who control the world, whether you believe it's the lizard people, whether you believe it's man and
I knew it was lizard people.
Family. What's up?
I knew it was the lizard people.
Yeah, whatever it is, I do believe there is a form of elite people that are literally ruling the world. So it's, I'm just saying it's some crazy times here. Real quick, let me finish this last little bit up. So 6 times what is 6 times 3? So 63 times 3, 120.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're getting a free lesson today and everything you need to know about Bitcoin and charting and
education
and math. 7 times
math.
3 is now. In Pedro's defense, he is on the as I say, the double West Coast, which is Seattle, because those people are further west than anyone else in their brain, except maybe the people down in Portland. They're whacked too. But it's early. He gets up early to get on the show here, and obviously he's a day trader also, so he's up for the markets anyway. But I appreciate him coming on, and when it's that early and you got all this going on, sometimes the brain hasn't kicked in yet. It's operating in first gear, not in overdrive.
That's fun. Um, that's all right. So it's gonna be like 190-ish. What's it there? So it's
All
gonna
right,
be
I'll tell you what.
1 million.
Give me a minute to talk baseball again while you figure this out. I got to get some standings talk in here from someone tweeted to me. Yes, the standings in Major League Baseball are weird this year. Let me grab them here. For instance, let's find the American League Central for a good example of this. And you can't really see it that well over my shoulder because I didn't line it up right on my. How about if I move it? Can't move it. Anyway, what this the standings over my shoulder this way are showing is that Kansas City is in the bottom of the American League Central. It's one of the worst records in all of baseball ever. They are 18-50 with a 265 average. It doesn't get much worse than that. For a while, I thought Oakland was going to have it. They're the title as being the worst team in baseball at 19-51, but they're at 271, and Kansas City does have the advantage on them of being a loser by one more game. But the point of talking about that is the relative strength of this division sucks, and for some reason the Kansas City's had they had a big run in the 80s and 90s and stuff, but under the current ownership, I believe the football team in that city has been getting more juju than the baseball team. But one of the things I always like to see in the American League East is when the Yankees are not on top. And as I always tell everybody, after alcoholics come out of Alcohol Anonymous, they always refer to themselves as a recovering out. They say they're an alcoholic in recovery still. And I grew up as a Yankee fan, and I'm still in recovery from it. I grew up for a couple of years, first 12 years of my life in Connecticut, near the closest baseball team was the Yankees. My dad used to take me to the Yankees games now and then. And so I obviously was a crazy Yankees fan. And then I moved to the Midwest, and I tried to stay a Yankees fan, but it didn't work. I fully admit being a geographically based sports fan, and I live near the Cubs, so I'm a fan of theirs. People give me crap about that. But anyway, so as I say, now I've learned to detest the Yankees because they have this ability just to do things that goes right. They're like, your pitcher sucks. And the Yankees are like, all right, we'll take him. And he goes to the Yankees, and he has a Hall of Fame career. And you're like, oh, that was just an anomaly. And then another Cubs pitcher who's an awful middle reliever, the Yankees pick him up, and he becomes the star of the team. And people in the Bronx are cheering his name and carrying him on their shoulders. And we wanted to basically drown him in the lake here. And it happens over and over again. And I don't understand how it's like the stupid Notre Dame football team that, they're getting killed the whole game and they suck. And then in the last 30 seconds of the game, they throw 2 Hail Marys and win. And you're like, come on, man, God can't be that much on your side, but he is.
He is.
He is. He's holding that ball and says, oh, okay, right in the receiver's hands. And so I enjoy it in the back to baseball. I enjoy the Yankees not doing well. And sorry, New York fans. I mean, they're in third place. They got a 565 average. They're not doing poorly. But Tampa Bay is running the table right now in the American League East, and I'm happy for that. In the American League West, I really don't care about it all. I don't care about any team in the American League West. As far as I'm concerned, they could all... if they just never played again or anyone reported on them all, they'd be like, who cares? Nobody cares. And the only thing I like about the National League West is that when the Cubs go out on their National League West or on their West tours and hit the Dodgers and San Diego and stuff, it means the stadium's open here. And it used to mean that nothing was going on. But now the Ricketts family has concerts like crazy. And last weekend was the Dead and Company. And that was interesting. That was interesting having the Dead groupies roll into town. But so it's concert season. But they have a lot of good concerts when the Cubs go out west. Springsteen's coming up and things like that. So that's the only thing that matters to me for the National League West is that. And also, I do like it when the Dodgers aren't doing well because they've always been a pain in the keister also. But my good old-fashioned National League Central, which I pay attention to, Pittsburgh's at the top of it. But they're at the top of it just basically a 500 average. They're 34-32. The Cubs are second last place in the division, but they're only 4.5 games out. Basically a 2-game differential. And so it's going to be if it stays close like this, it'll be a wild card bonanza for the end of the season. But I got to tell you, the Cubs are not doing anything, not doing anything at all unless they get their middle relief pitching settled. That's for sure. That is for sure. All right, that's my baseball for right now. I'd talk more about the Nisi Lounge. Usually they have a bunch of good tweets during the game from last night, but they didn't. They didn't have. They do have the Nisi Lounge. Does have some new beers. No rain, no problems, and we've still got some excellent beverages for your $4 game day specials consideration. The Cubs bars right across the street, like I was telling you earlier about the Lucky Door beers, are $11. Just a 30-second walk the other direction, beers are $4. So pick your bar wisely when you go watch the game.
Always make sure.
All right, let's finish up with Pedro here. We've been on the air for about an hour now. It's amazing how fast it goes when you talk.
It's true. I'll make this real quick. All right, so the next Bitcoin halving here is going to be April and it happens every 4 years, right?
Right.
So we can see here, we're going to be in a cycle of 3. I said 10 years. We should see the market at least 1.2 million Bitcoin. All right, 10 years. It sounds crazy, but there's a lot of stuff in relationship to this. I simply have said, if the market simply goes and does it 3x every 4 years, this is simply what's going, or every Bitcoin halving, this is where we're going to be at. So the next Bitcoin halving is in 2024 of April. And so if we do a 3-peak from the previous high, which is what we've at least done on a conservative basis, we will see it at $210,000 Bitcoin. Okay. Then the next one, as we have inflation, things kick in and people put more money in and hold it, and at these levels, with a lot of people getting in at these levels. Right here, you'll see again we reach 600,000, which would basically be in 2028, 600,000. Then that'd be the second Bitcoin halving, and then this third Bitcoin halving, which is going to do a 3. This is a $40 trillion Bitcoin, which is crazy, but just throwing it out there. All right. This right here would be 180 or 1,800,000 Bitcoin. So I think it'd be more down in here, the 120, just because 120 is one of those numbers that typically play. It's 1.2. But it's very doable. Like, it's not like to sit there and say, whoa, that's not going to happen. Especially when you consider, if we keep going along this trend with the U.S. In the backside saying we're poo-pooing it, but I think they're accruing. Now, imagine being the people who bought Bitcoin right in here when the market was sitting around 200, 300.
Right.
And I think a lot of institutions did buy at these levels. You can see these big amount of buys over a weekly period. These are real buyers. I believe these are the ones that actually hold these levels, right? When we come down to it, and then institutions come in, and I think that there are a lot of institutions who did buy at these levels, because it was almost like a Hail Mary, like, well, you never know. It's like, you don't know. This is it went from basically a cent or less than a cent, sitting at these $400 marks, So I just think it's interesting. So that's it. That's me in a nutshell. What I think potentially what we can see Bitcoin do.
All All right, I'm going to finish up the show with a little talk about yesterday's House Financial Services meeting. I meant to do this at the beginning of the show, but as usual, my technical issues flummoxed my mind, and so I put it off till now. Yesterday we had the House Financial Services Committee doing another follow-up hearing for digital assets, and it was a very, very crypto-friendly thing. They had Coy Garrison on, who's former SEC attorney for Hester Pierce, and Hester Pierce is the commissioner, is one of the commissioners for the SEC, not the chairman, but one of the commissioners, and very crypto friendly. And he worked for her, giving her counsel for a while. And they had the CEO of Circle on there, and then I don't know, another guy, I can't remember his name, but they had this stooge behind me here, and I'm sorry for Mr. Kaplan for calling you the stooge. And hopefully I will have you on my show one day to correct me on that. But he represents the company called Prometheum. And Prometheum is a crypto exchange company currently not operating, but they just got approval from the SEC, fully licensed exchange from the SEC in the traditional securities regulated manner, in which there's custody, there's an exchange, and then there's the third part of it, which I can't remember. All separate, arm's length transactions between everything, separate entities, all fully licensed and everything like that. But here's the trick: they're only allowed to trade registered securities. So no crypto is a registered security, so they can't even trade a commodity, that Bitcoin. They can't even do that. And so the old adage is this: if you're playing poker and you're looking at the table and you don't know who the mark is at the table, guess who's the mark? Yeah, you are. Right. And so that's poor Aaron here didn't realize he was the mark. And he definitely did not get any media training or training to testify. Apparently he's an attorney, and so attorneys are practiced in public speaking and in these methods. But he was really bad, and Twitter is afire with it. And I just came out and I was like, it's someone else, I'm sure, came up with it first, because now the internet is involved. You never think of anything first. Someone always beat you to it. But I'm just going to do this real quick. You see the resemblance here? He looks like Voldemort, doesn't he? Right. And that's basically who he was on the thing. He was the big evil guy that came in and poured the water, rained on everyone's parade, as they say. And talking about it, and his testimony was just brutal. In fact, I'll just summarize it, because he basically was against all right and said, the crypto markets are bad. It's just awful, and unless you're regulated exactly like we did, we went through all the rules, did everything according to the SEC. Nothing good's going to happen. And then the House of Representatives guys asked him, well, are you trading anything? Can you trade anything? Well, no, but blah blah, blah 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 blah, yada yada yada. And then someone else, that Coy Garrison, who was a supporter of crypto, testified. Someone asked him a question: are any other countries just trying to cram this into old securities law, or are they coming up with new things? And Coy pretty much said every other jurisdiction on the market is coming up with new ways to do it. Europe just passed the EU just passed the MiCA Act, and the individual states of the EU are applying that and coming up with their own regulations. Also, Switzerland has famously established a crypto-friendly regulation. It's stringent, but it's crypto-friendly. And of course, we have the UAE setting up a whole free trade zones with regulated crypto exchanges and things like that. So everyone's doing stuff new. And this poor stooge here got up and had to say all the things. For sure, we're going to find his company was backed by the big banks or something like that. It's three of them from the same family. They're all attorneys and SEC law, Wall Street people. I don't know exactly what's going on. Hopefully someone will find out and write an expose of it. But I got to tell you, he was the stooge of the event, and it was just cringeworthy watching him testify. Because it was so bad. But it raised the awareness that someone is jamming through the system, a crypto-friendly exchange, And if now that one company has got it, other companies are going to say, wait a minute. Why weren't we allowed to do it? Why couldn't we do it? And like I said, I had my guest, Patrick Doherty, on the other day, and he made a good point because he went to try and take his client, wink, wink, Coinbase, to the SEC to get registered, and weren't allowed to get registered. And he's worked with AVAX, he's worked with a bunch of big projects and other exchanges too. And he came out and just said, look, every exchange is completely different. He said they're not like smart contract DEXs that you can cut and paste and come up with a new one pretty quickly. They all operate differently, have way different procedures, different ways of market making, different ways of this and that, and they're all different. They're not going to fit into the model that the SEC wants. And the only thing that could get jammed to the SEC, the one that fit, was Voldemort's company here. But once they got registration, they're not even allowed to trade anything at all. So what's the money being spent for? I mean, it's mind-boggling. I just wanted to get that so I could get that on the record so I could clip it out. If anyone has any comments on that, just please drop them in the comments here.
Can you also talk about a little bit about the EU and the rest of the world and actually how they are in an amazing way setting up correct laws, ways that they're actually working through it, right? Like,
they're at least setting up new rules that they may have to adjust later, but they're at least setting up playing. They built the stadium for everyone to play in, and the stadium may not be big enough or may have too much security or whatever your analogy is. They're working through it, right? Even Hong Kong, it's still run by the Chinese government still, but even Hong Kong now is like, all right, we're going back to doing this. We're setting up. We closed down the freewheeling efforts that we had before, shut it down, and have rebuilt. They basically rebuilt the crypto industry in Hong Kong from scratch as a fully regulated thing from the Chinese government, and they're open for business now. Same thing in Dubai. Dubai said, this isn't any good. Let's come up with our own rules, set a fair playing ground. They're being very proactive and forward-thinking, and even the UK, a great example. The UK had the typical thing that we did in America, which it was like, oh my God, this is bad, money laundering, oh my God, and everyone's like, let's put a stop to it. And the first rules that were starting to come out of the UK were very bad for crypto, and then fortunately none of those really passed. Now they're starting to they saw what the EU's doing, and they're setting up similar. Actually, the UK is ahead of the game a little because they have one point of regulation. The FCA in the UK is the only point. There's no multiple committees or anything. Everything goes through them, so they're having an easier time promulgating rules for this. But they're being forward-thinking. They're like, all right, it's coming. Let's figure out a way to regulate it. And the Prime Minister, why the heck is the name escapes me, famously just recruited... what the hell's his name? Like a Netscape founder with this huge VC fund. Andreessen Horowitz, is that his name? I can't remember. And if I open up another tab and Google it right now, it'll blow up my computer. But is bringing his $35 billion investment fund over to the UK, or a big chunk of it, because the rules are too hard in the US to do what he needs to do in the digital asset industry. Literally, yeah.
It's just on how much tax revenue,
right? And jobs and all this kind of stuff, and it's like we were talking about here in Chicago. Just bad, the bad policies that politicians have insisted on here in the U.S. They have consequences. And Chicago has lost. We lost to. People didn't realize how much of the financial industry was centered in Chicago, not just New York. But Citadel was based here. The Chicago Board of Trade, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, Citadel, Guggenheim Partners. The Citadel and Guggenheim are two of the most massive hedge fund groups. They're huge. I mean, they're billions and billions and zillions and zillions of dollars. And both of them just said, nah, we're going to Miami. Screw this. You know what? Chicago, you guys blew it. The state of Illinois, you just blew it. You didn't make it friendly for us to stay here, and we can now that everything's digital, we can go anywhere we want. And so we're moving. And they did, and they took the jobs and they took the tax revenue with them. And the same thing is going on in the federal government from the let me rephrase that, from the effects of the Biden administration's policy, in that people are leaving. They're saying, "No, this is going to happen, guys. It's going to happen. They're going to trade digital assets. It's going to trade crypto. There's going to be a revolution in finance because of it. And if you're not going to let it happen here, it's going to go." And you can see it starting to. I mean, that the House is led by the Republicans now, and it's not just that it's a party thing. It's an old in the Democratic Party right now. I don't want to get into politics, but they're led by a president who's a zillion years old, and they have antiquated ways of doing things, and they're very in bed with the banking lobby. Just look at Elizabeth Warren. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And the Republicans have a very young blockchain caucus in the House of Representatives, and because of their deal with the Speaker of the House this year, they got a lot of influence in the committees. They got a lot of influence, and that allowed the House to hold all these hearings and come out with these new bills now to restructure the SEC, to have draft legislation to make everything in crypto legal, but operate in a regulated framework. And we're not seeing as much effort out of the Senate because the Senate is still the Democrats and Republicans got to trade power there, so it's delicate what goes on there. But it's starting. All we need is one more decent election, and we'll have the U.S. government on our side again. But still, like they said in this committee here with that Voldemort was at, even when the legislation starts, there's still a long turnaround to when there's, everything's in force, and the market reacts to it. And so while that's going on, like you said, Pedro, the rest of the world, the shout out to the rest of the world, they're taking our money and running with it.
Can I throw? And this is something I was thinking about the other day regarding that. So I was listening to a podcast. They were talking about how Europe is doing all this dope stuff for Europe and the rest of the world. We also aren't talking about South America, nor are we communicating even about what's going on in Africa as a continent, right? Like there's so much good things happening in crypto out there, and the talent's going out there. So I was sitting there and I was going, man, if I'm an institution, right, I'm looking at how I want to do things, and I'm thinking as an elite, my biggest thing is I need to be able to have the opposite end coming in so I can control the market. Meaning, like, I always say to people, look, it doesn't matter what information you give me. I just want information coming from you, right? Whether you lie to me, I need where you find your truth at, and I'll be able to find it just interacting with you, right? All information is good information. Just like hedge funds say, all data is good data. Just give me the data, and they'll be able to sift through it, right? That's why they create all this stuff. So I was sitting there and I was like, okay, well, if I'm gonna leave, if I want, let's say I'm Biden or whatever, these guys, I need people to do the opposite of what I'm doing for me to get in at it, right? And so I was sitting there going, well, if the rest of the world goes through and starts to get into it, those are gonna be my offloaders, whether right. I'm trying for it to go buy or I'm trying to go sell. So I can sit there, and because the nature of crypto is you can be, there are protocols out there you can run through where you can be anonymous, completely anonymous.
Sure.
And without being followed. And so, like I've talked about the black boxes being offshore, going through and trading the market. I mean, and I talked about this a lot. There is an algorithm that goes in and every hour on the hour buys $10,000 worth of Bitcoin every single day.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Hour.
Every hour on the hour. Boom, 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 boom. And it's dope. I think it's cool, right? Doesn't mean like there's a, like a big thing. But the reality is this, is that there are institutions out there and they're outside. They're buying $10,000 in and out every day, boom, or every hour on the hour. And if I was one of those guys, I was trying to think like, why would I do this? I'm thinking this government. Am I really trying to hold on to it, or am I doing it bait and switch? Right? Like the other elites in other countries are still part of the same group. So you sit there and say, all right, America, look, we need you to play the opposite end so that we can go through and set this up. And then you will then have your offloaders coming in and out. So you come in with the big hammer to push the market down to scare people, and we'll allow them to come in and buy more. And then you then have that vice versa, because there's still a lack of liquidity within Bitcoin, or not Bitcoin, but crypto, because it is complicated to get in and get out. It's not simple still, or it's not simple yet. It's not like, stock market or opening a brokerage. By nature, it is complicated, right? And we're trying to build interfaces. But what I think is interesting is just real simple as this. The rest of the world is the liquidity base for, I think, the elites to get in and get out now. And whenever Gensler wants to do certain things, him and Kramer both speak hand in hand. It's very interesting, right?
Interesting.
So when you sit there and you see them playing off each other, get out of Cardano or get into Cardano, right? Get into Ethereum, as sometimes he says, or whatever he says, right? Like, you're like, all right, dude, right? Like, he's showing his hand in a sense, right? Like, oh, I bought Ethereum when I don't even know what this was, right? Boom, everybody bought Ethereum. His whole entire, and what did he do? He offloaded. He made literally hundreds of millions. But at the same time, there's no loss right now. There's no loss. And I'll wrap this up here. In America, we are the only nation where our U.S. Governmental officials who are elected can trade the market without penalty. They just have to file.
It's mind-boggling that they can't stop that, and that every time just mind-boggling
Twice.
That they're allowed to do it.
Twice. It came to the Supreme Court twice. It's coming up again for a third time, and just like the other two times, it's going to be shut down. It's what's going to happen. Why would you allow that to pass if you're part of the top elite? I wouldn't. I would.
But other countries have been successful in doing it. I mean,
bro, come on. Like, we're literally doing the opposite. The rest of the elite, dude, we're a money bag and a money grab for the rest of the world elite as well. Because America, even though we can get, we're a sleeping giant, it's still the rest of the world's money bag. I mean, China comes through and uses us as a piggy bank. Europe the same way. South Africa does business with us specifically to bring money. South America does the same thing. Like, am I wrong, or am I misunderstanding like the way I see the world?
I don't think you're wrong at all.
So in the same sense, it just kind of sees, like, if you step back and look at things from a fourth perspective, an aerial perspective, and sit there and go, okay, put yourself down in each circumstance, then sit there and look at the why and what's best for me, and then why certain aspects are going on, just like in the market, right? Like right now, we're in a selling area. Here is crude oil. In the same sense, we're watching crude oil push up into a seller area. There are sellers sitting here. Why do they want to push it up? They're trying to take out all of the sellers sitting here, right? So they're buying because right now we're coming into where it's summertime, where there's going to be a demand for crude oil, which then we're potentially probably going to see some major push-ups, probably another $80, $90 crude oil, if not much more higher than that.
Man, when I used to work in the crude oil trading pit in New York, and in the New York Mercantile Exchange a long time ago, in another life, as I say, and not just the heating oil or the oil pit, crude oil, but in the heating oil and in the gas pits also. And I got to tell you, what a wacky bunch of a group that was. But I remember when the prices were going up to like $30 a barrel, and people are like, "Oh my God, the economy's gonna crash. World's coming to an end. $30 a barrel."
It's beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful.
I gotta tell you, it was the smelliest group of people I've ever encountered in my life, and I've been through slums in the world, and the guys that were the traders in the New York Mercantile Exchange. They
Really?
crammed into that pit, and they stood their spot, and they yelled and screamed all day for 6 hours. And when they got done, not a lot of the guys were in shape. I mean, we'll say some of them were a little large, and the odors that would come out of them, it was not a female friendly area, let me tell you, and not because of people being discriminating, just from a grossness point of view. That was my sidetrack. Anyway, I have one more question to ask you that I've been wanting to ask you, regarding the markets since the you keep mentioning liquidity since the SEC took its action. Have you seen the liquidity in the markets kind of dry up? I mean, it's more difficult for companies to move big money around into crypto with Silvergate and the crypto-friendly banks being out of business.
No, they're just going somewhere else. It's not like, I mean, this is weeks. Look, this was back, and we can see that. Take out the section. How do I do that? Settings. There we go. Okay, so last week, you can see where a bunch of people would have sold off, right? You can see here, it is drying up from a liquidity standpoint. But look, in comparison, we're on Thursday.
Yeah.
Right. This was the previous couple of weeks prior. We're seeing a drop, but nothing substantial. It isn't like where I'm only seeing maybe a 5% drop in actual like volume. Like, it's nothing dramatic. It's not like I'm sitting there going like, holy crap, right? Like volume wise from last week, volume, right? Within Bitcoin, we had 5,000 Bitcoin being traded last week, right? Or 2 weeks ago. Then last week, with the craziness, we have 10,000. And then this week we have 3,000. Right, so you can see we're on Thursday in the beginning, and we'll probably end up again at the traditional 5,000 Bitcoin being traded. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like it's not like it's in 200 Bitcoin being traded or 300 Bitcoin being traded a day. It's still about 1,000. So it's not. I'm not shocked. You know what I'm saying? It's nothing's really dropped. So that's why I sit there and say, this is a gameplay. When we're sitting there playing, people are holding, people are hodling. I mean, to quote our friend on Monday, like, I'm a hodler. Like, he just straight up said, I'm a hodler of Bitcoin and a few of these currencies out there. Like, he's like, I ain't moving my stuff. The world's too crazy. And this is a smart man. It's not like, and this man is he's not even young. He's 70, you said, right? 70, 60 plus?
Yeah, he's got to be at least 70.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying. He's not young and smart and impetuous. He's older, he's mature, he understands cycles. He's not like someone who's uneducated. He's very well educated, ran businesses, understands the context of most things. And additionally to that, he's not like poor where he needs money. He's very wealthy. He has a great law firm, right? He's a teacher at a prestigious Ivy League
law school.
Yeah, law school. And additionally to that, it's not like he's unfamiliar with the industry at large, meaning the financial industry. He's been around since he was in his 20s, which is 50 years. Okay, so he has seen trends come and go. He has seen Beanie Babies. He has seen a lot of baseball cards. He has seen, I use this because these are the analogies that are being used to attach to Bitcoin. It's a fad. It's not that, it's just hocus pocus. It's fake money. It's monopoly money. At first, I believe the stereotype, but as you look into it, it's amazing. So to quote him, he simply just says, this isn't a fad. It's not going anywhere, right? Like, well, I guess I'm paraphrasing. I did not quote, but I'm paraphrasing him in the same sense where he says, yeah, I'm a hodler. And you can see it in the volume. People are not, and the SEC is doing their darndest to push it down. right? Like they're
Right.
trying to push it down because they want to get in at these low levels. And listen, they're not going to stop. Like they will not stop until it comes down to these low levels. Like, look, I mean, you see, right? Look at the volume. Every time we see a volume spike, right? Every time we have a major sell-off, you see people come in, they buy, and then they. And
how long till the next halving? A year?
It's April of 2024.
All right,
so I think
10 months.
Yeah. So well, remember, you have the 6-month rally. So I think the reason why they're actually the SEC is coming down so hard right now because they need more sellers to step in, right? As they're dropping the market. Right, they're trying to get it down to these lower levels as much as they can so that they can absorb the other end, right, before the next push up, because everybody knows now when Bitcoin halving comes, and they know 6 months to 3 months, that's when you have the Bitcoin rallies, right? Like here we go, like, you know, when was the last one back here? It was April 20. Sorry. So here's the halving, April of 20, right? Boom.
Right.
Then we see the rally, boom, shortly after. That's what's going to happen. We're seeing this type of movement. I think, like, if you look right here, it kind of similar to this. I keep thinking, like, we're going to see this drop. Like, I'm expecting a major drop right here, like, to come down here, because I don't think this was enough buy pressure. I didn't see something like, here we are, like just right here, you can see these big plugs. I think they know the next one is going to be major. So I just feel like I'm waiting to see a major real buying opportunity. Like we saw with Shiba Inu when they were going sideways, and then they dropped it below the low of the, I call it like the media no, not the necessarily the launch of it, but people knew about Shiba Inu at a certain level, and so they bought in at a certain level, and then it exploded. But once it went below that area, that low, and it stopped a bunch of people out, or people got out because they no longer make any money off of Shiba Inu. Then that's when you saw then the buyers come in, and then they pushed it back up with a basically hammer in the market. That's what I'm waiting for, is something for a catalyst, whether it just outright there, the SEC says we are not going to allow crypto. If they have to come out and say we're not going to allow them, they are going to crush Bitcoin to get in at these low levels again, and then push it back.
I think what they're doing, it sounds like what you're telling me is they learned from the Chinese. The Chinese government famously kept banning crypto to drive everyone out of business in China, and then they reorganized it under their own ownership, and suddenly it's legal again in Hong Kong. But who owns the companies behind it? That's right, the Chinese party again, not the individual CCP. Companies. Right.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, and that's what I'm expecting.
Yeah, and then the Gensler and crew were like, those Chinese are awfully smart people. They had a good plan there. Let's screw everybody and then take their money.
Yeah, well, we know that, like, going through all this, there's ties there. I mean, like, there's elite ties. Like, she was not it's not like he rose from the grounds of pauperness. He's an elite. He is a Chinese prince. He was raised as a Chinese prince. If you go through and you go listen to the economy podcast of the prince, explains his history, goes in and talks about it. She was a unsuspecting ruler who came in, and he is playing Mao's book, textful line, or he's playing exactly what was supposed to be played. And it's being played. We're being played. And not by I'm talking about the elites. They want to stay in power. It's just it. Anyways, I'm being a weirdo.
That's all right. That is all right. Well, Pedro, we've had a good talk today. I didn't have a guest on for everybody, so we got Pedro full time here, and we learned a lot about the markets today and what's going on with them. We talked about everything from. I got to bring his picture back. I love it so much.
Baltimore, he who must not be named.
He who must not be. All right, and I shouldn't even say that name, but yes. I got to tell you, the stooge of the House Financial Services Committee was the CEO of Prometheum, and hopefully someday. While I use the word, I meanly use the word stooge. The point I'm trying to make is that he was the mark at the conference, and he came off very badly, and it was a terrible outing for him. But he got his point across, and now the world hates him. The crypto world hates him, so I got to do that. But my apologies for calling you a stooge. I would love to have you on my show to talk about these things because I like to get the view from each side. And, of course, we talked about our good friends, the Chicago Cubs, who today they're back here at Wrigley Field, and it's a good game today. Marcus Stroman is the pitcher. Oh, it is extremely small on my screen here. You can't really see it. But he is 7-4 with a 2.4 ERA, and he's up against I can't even read that from this far. Ovidio, I can't pronounce Johan's last name properly, but he's at 3-5, and so it looks like hopefully the Cubs are going to pick up one on the Pirates here today. Hopefully it's a good game. It's another night game. Cubs are ruining the day baseball thing here, but anyway, so that's it for Bitcoin and baseball. Pedro, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate it as always. Pedro, adios, Pedro.
Adios, guys. Talk to you guys soon. Later.
I think Pedro had 6 conversations going on at once, but it's been a good day today. I had a long rambling conversations, which are good because while we didn't have a structured show, these long rambling conversations get the thought process out on your head, and I have a pile of notes now that I will use for future shows. And frankly, if you get to this part of the show, if you're watching this on the replay, and you get to this part of the show, drop a comment and say, you made it. You made it, because I don't have confidence that everyone's sticking to the end. And the end is usually when we have the most fun. But anyway, have a great day, everyone, and we will see you again tomorrow. So be there.